let's talk a little bit about Jerome Powell trying to crash Bitcoin. What's going on there, John?
Yeah, Jerome Powell is meeting with the House Financial Services Committee on the state of the economy this week. He met yesterday on Wednesday, and he's meeting today on Thursday. And he's just talking about different things that's going on in the economy, whether that's inflation, whether that's rate hikes, whether that's the global reserve currency, that's the sanctions on Russia, and how it all kind of plays into the economy we have going on today. So our first thing is we have a tweet. Jerome Powell's on one. He is currently saying that USD is currently a system with high liquidity. It's the place to be, is a quote from him. And then from an economy or from an ecosystem and economy for an alternative where we're to evolve, another reserve currency could emerge. It's possible to have more than one reserve currency. I completely agree. It is possible to have more than one reserve currency, but what is that currency going to be? Are they going to try to make it a CBDC? Are they going to try to make it Bitcoin? Gold? Do we see us going back to gold? Like, what is the other reserve currency? I think is what's on people's minds, but I completely agree that we can have two reserve currencies. It's just got to be the right one. USD has obviously fallen off. And then we have a quote from Jerome Powell here that said the Ukraine-Russia conflict underscored the need for congressional actions on digital finance, including cryptocurrencies. We have this burgeoning industry, which has many parts to it, and there isn't in place the kind of regulatory framework that needs to be there. He's talking about the framework around Bitcoin and what regulations need to be put into place to maybe stop Russia from evading sanctions with Bitcoin, which we talked about yesterday, but also just like what needs to be in place to kind of regulate this industry so it's not the Wild West anymore. So countries aren't just setting up accounts, or is that the right thing? And we kind of allow that. So just setting up our infrastructure in a place and our regulation in a place that people can move forward and innovate on this technology.
Yeah, he also talked about how terrorists or other people doing bad things, just bad actors, can use cryptocurrency as a means to skirt the system and get around things. And this is a narrative as old as time, right? We've talked about this literally 100 times on this show alone, which is that criminals do not want to use the blockchain because everything can be traced, everything is visible, everything is transparent. It is much easier to catch people, right? If you're the FBI, if you're the DEA, if you're a government agency in general, you want people to use Bitcoin. You want people to use a means of transaction that can be traced. It can be transparent, it can be looked at and overviewed. So that makes no sense to me at all. I agree that there needs to be a regulatory framework. Just go do it. Literally go do it. We've been waiting for this forever now to just have regulatory clarity. And what we've seen is people and their companies and their corporations are going to places around the world where there is clarity. It doesn't have to be the best laws in the world. Maybe it's the worst laws in the world. It doesn't really matter in my mind, but as long as there's clarity, it makes it much more important so people know exactly what to expect. If you want to go mine somewhere, you need to know exactly what to expect from a regulatory perspective when you're going there. If you want to own an exchange somewhere, you need to know exactly where you're going to expect. And if the United States wants to be the king when it comes to Bitcoin and the digital asset industry, they need to be very, 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 very clear about what's going to happen from a regulatory standpoint. They need to do it quick, and they need to do it in a good manner, right? We want to be kind to people. We want to innovate here. We want to do what we've always done, which is entice entrepreneurs to come build their companies in our country. And ultimately, what we're going to see is the country that does that the best is going to entice people to come there. And it's a massive industry. There's going to be massive tax benefits. There's going to be massive jobs. There's going to be massive things from a regulatory standpoint. And it's going to lift up entire regions at a time. We're seeing this now on a country level. Countries like El Salvador and nation states like El Salvador and others and around the world, Ukraine now, they all own Bitcoin, right? They're buying Bitcoin. I'm sure as hell other countries are doing it this week also, just given the nature of exactly what's happening and the dependence that they're seeing, what can happen when you depend on the US dollar or another currency around the world. So ultimately, I think it comes down to Jerome Powell, like, let's figure it out. I think people agree. People want regulatory clarity. It doesn't have to be the best. It doesn't have to be the worst, but just give us clarity around exactly what can happen. I don't think it's fair to just say, hey, look, terrorists use this and therefore we should regulate the hell out of it, because everyone knows when it comes to terrorism, when it comes to drugs, when it comes to other illegal activities, the US dollar is still the preferred currency of choice. I think it's about 2 to 5%, 800 or so billions of dollars of each year is used for illicit activities here in the United States. or within the US dollar, that is much, much, much more than digital currencies and Bitcoin. The number with Bitcoin has actually been declining over time. It has become obvious that it is not the currency of choice when it comes to criminals, and it should not be used for illicit activities. So I think ultimately what we're going to find is that this is going to continue to reduce over time. People do not want to use Bitcoin and other digital assets as a means of doing illegal things. Jerome Powell, I think, understands that. I think he is playing one side of the ball right now and saying we need to regulate this, but ultimately most Bitcoiners agree. Would you agree, John?
I would agree. I think more and more people have realized that the public transparency of Bitcoin and the Bitcoin ledger are just not good for doing illicit activities. We were talking about yesterday, the Bitfinex 2016 hack. They easily traced it, right? The government has, and all governments around the world have been getting better and better at kind of tracking those bad actors within an industry, right? So 50% of cash money laundering goes undetected. Bitcoin, it's easily available to see where the funds are going, where have they been, what wallets have they gone through, what systems have they gone through, and then where do they end up in the end? What bank do they get transferred to in the end? How do people actually pull out their money, which is, I think, the big mishap for a lot of people. But yeah, look, the Fed also talked about an interest rate hike, which I think the market is kind of pricing in right now. They're talking about a 25 basis point interest rate hike, so 0.25%. Money's getting more expensive. The market's going down because of it, and also because of all the uncertainty that's happening in the world, right? When you have the chairman of the Federal Reserve saying, hey, there could be another global reserve currency, when the only global reserve currency right now is the United States dollar, that is concerning for the United States dollar. That's concerning for the U.S. markets. Are they going to try to introduce another one and kind of build one from scratch with the CBDC? Do they just say, hey, we're actually going to use gold as well, which Russia has been accumulating massive amounts of over the last decade? So, like, what do they do? Like, what are they trying to signal by saying this is there's going to be another global reserve currency, or there could be another global reserve currency? It really just depends how our government treats it and where we go to from here. But it looks like the U.S. dollar is in a very, very strong place still. Doesn't look like it's going anywhere. And then over time, people, I think, will begin to realize that there are available options for another global reserve currency. And then Powell said here, Peter Schiff said here in a tweet, Powell said he still supports a 1/4 point rate hike at the March meeting and will start working on a plan to begin shrinking the balance sheet at some unknown future date. The fact that such a plan doesn't already exist proves the Fed has no real intention of carrying one out. It's basically saying the Fed has no idea what's going on. They're going to do a 25 basis point hike, but the fact that they don't know when or how it will like kind of go just speaks to they don't really understand what's going on. They don't really have a plan to start with.
Hey you, did you like this video? Great, we make 5 of them a day and post them here on this channel. Make sure you're subscribed, like the video, and see you next time.